Come to order. Roll call. Janet?
Bob Fiedler,
Present.
Paul Adams,
Present.
Mark Carlson,
Present.
Kathy Lee,
Present. Mike.
Present.
Everybody's here. If there's no objection to the minutes that were circulated, they'll be approved. Any public comment this morning? Seeing no public comment, we'll move right to our business items. And we'll have our county administrator, Mr. Witt, present the financial report for July 2025.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. All right. So the report in the packet represents the financials through July. So in the circuit court, everything's looking good there. Clerk of courts, probably not as much good. A lot of the things that we've noted in the past with court-appointed counsel, interpreter services, again, are running above budget projected for the year. So we're going to address that in this next budget, aren't we? Yep. Medical examiner. So with a different department head in the medical examiner's office, you're seeing a lot of red lines. So when we get new department heads, you see this quite frequently. They interpret an invoice differently than the other person interpreted the invoice, so they expense it to a different line. It's really just a learning curve for us because we'll move the budget to match where she wants to expense things. So you'll see a little bit of a shift over this year, next year, and then it all sort of evens out at the end. Justice Support Services, not a lot there. District Attorney's Office, on target. Child support, all good. Law enforcement. I don't think I have any highlights to point out there, nor in the jail. That pretty much wraps it up. Are there any questions on anything that you guys saw in the financials, though?
Supervisor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. And it's not so much on the numbers, but on the clerk of court side, is there any option to use any kind of iPad translation devices? None. Okay.
Yeah. Not yet. So the state of Georgia actually has a device like that they use for translation services, but the state of Wisconsin court system has not approved the use of any devices yet. So it's only a matter of time. It might be years, but it is only a matter of time before technology is able to be used for those types of things.
I was going to say there's so many items on here, but we have 3 items dealing with the finances for the county. So perhaps under another one, I might raise a couple issues relative to what the state might have recently done and how that'll impact things. But I think I'll wait till another part of the agenda to raise those questions. Any other questions for Mr. Witt on this topic? Thank you, Ken. CASA report. We do this quarterly with Sean Kinsella. And welcome to the podium, Sean.
Good morning. It's good to be in front of you. It's been a while. I had asked to be held off back in June because we had just had our gala and I didn't have the numbers. So I didn't really want to present. And then you weren't meeting, and then you went on a field trip. And so here we are in September. So currently, our assets are at $247,000, which is exactly where we're projected to be. We actually ended the second quarter $1,000 above projection, which I always consider a huge win when you're dealing with grants. So right now, our liquidity ratio is we have $2.50 for every dollar that we would owe. So that's also a very positive number. You're shooting for 1.5, $1.50. And our liabilities and the deferred revenue, that would be the money that the county gave us, are currently at 133. We are now a VOCA recipient, and so it's been tough this year with VOCA being a federally funded program. And so currently, I believe we are still about $9,000 with outstanding payments dues there. So our actual versus budgeted, the actual is 139. We were budgeted at 116 for revenue, and that's because we had a really great fundraising event. And fortunately, it happened during a meeting of the supervisors, but we invited Galen Elmore, who I don't know if anyone knows him, but he's actually been around speaking quite a bit. This was our first time to invite a professional speaker in. Our goal was to raise $32,000, and we raised $31,200. So I also consider that a win when you come in so close to your projection, because really I just spitball that. There's no science to it. I just go, this is what I think we could possibly get. So it was a really great event for us. And I think that we're going to continue to do that. Now that we're getting bigger, we have more opportunities and ways to connect with other speakers. So in October, the Wisconsin State Conference will be happening, and they're bringing in a speaker named Mel Rowe, who has worked extensively in the foster care system. So it'll be interesting to see her take on that as well. Growing sponsorships. This is one of our goals that is tied to the gala. So in 2004, or in 2024, we had 7. In 2025, we grew that to 13. Really, the big problem we're finding is converting the sponsors into larger sponsors, right? So taking them from maybe 1,000 to the next step, which would be 2,500. Most, when they come in, that's what they lock in at. So we are getting some larger sponsors, and really the banks are very key to that. We were trying to grow our events from 80 to 125, and we came in at 120 attendees, and grow our grants. There is a caveat on this, if you haven't heard, about Otto Bremer Foundation, or Otto Bremer Trust. They sold the bank, the Bremer Bank system, to ONB, Old National Bank. So they no longer have revenue that'll come in to support the trust. And they have delegated all operations now to other organizations to dole out that money. And in the area that we were in, you had to have a revenue of $2 million in order to even qualify, which is really disappointing. That was $25,000 that we depend on that is now washed away. So we are no longer a runner for the Otto Bremer. So that's a big gap for us to try and make up. And we're currently, I have some ideas I'm going to pitch to the board next week. So we'll see where they land on how we'll make that up. There are more federal grants coming out, though, that we're also going to talk about pursuing. These federal grants are heavy on the data side. There is a lot of quarterly follow-up that has to happen. And performance. So we are right now at 22 special advocates with 6 who asked to take the summer off. So that actually works well for us because a lot of the CPS cases come in during the school year, and so there's not a lot of reporting that goes on during the summer. So we were able to give people their summer off, and they could go to their cabins and whatnot. A lot of them are retired. About 50% of our volunteer force is retired. We are serving 29 children, and then we started to serve out of county. So if there's a CASA in another area and a family moves to the new area, we're now beginning to pick up those cases. The advocate reports to the county of origin, not to us. So in essence, we really don't have a handle on anything that goes on with that, but they are living here, and so we are supporting 3 children who are from the Milwaukee area. And case closures, we had 19 so far, which is outstanding. That is an amazing amount. I want to say last year it was around 7. So cases are moving faster, resolution is coming quicker, and the children are being reunited with stable family members. So we believe that that's a great outcome. Any questions? All right.
Sean, I've got just a couple of general ones. Just very generally, could you describe what the role of CASA is for
Sure.
anybody who's listening or would like to really more fully understand what you folks do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so we have two programs now. We have VOCA, which is assisting victims of crime, and they can apply for victim compensation that'll reimburse them for expenses associated with being a victim. So that's one program. And then we also do special advocacy in the court. And what that means is we recruit volunteers who go through extensive training and become an officer of the court. And they report to the judge their observations and their communications with all the circles of support around a child. And so one of the things that we are trying to do is, number one, identify the circles of support, help support those circles of support, strengthen them when possible, and report that to the judges so the judge can make a best interest determination on the direction for the child and anything that is needed for the child. So it's really an advocacy support system that is within juvenile court.
Can you give us some idea on the VOCA, how much recoveries might be on a typical case?
So they're eligible for 4 years, up to a max of $40,000. Various components, like mental health, has a cap of $3,000. If they needed an adaptation to the house, so let's say they were paralyzed and now had a wheelchair, and they needed a wheelchair ramp, that has a cap of $5,000. So there are components built into that, but that case can stay open for 4 years, and we are tracking several cases right now. One was for a child who was sex trafficked. She'll be eligible for 4 years, and we'll help her with that application. And then two of the moms that we support were very badly beaten by their partners, and we'll support them for an additional 4 years as well.
I don't mean to monopolize the questions, but just a couple more. I know there's a lot of turnover in the advocates. Could you comment on the turnover and what you're doing to seek more advocates?
Yeah, so we do not have a lot of turnover. We have a retention rate of 80%, which is phenomenal for advocacy, and especially when you look at the kind of advocacy which we do, which is very long-term. We ask the advocates to stay on for a year, meeting with the child weekly. Of course, they can take vacations and things like that and go out of town and ski trips, whatever. But our advocates are staying well past the year mark. Almost all of them finish out the case, and then they assess whether or not they want to leave. Really, we only lose advocates, quite honestly, it's either like a major surgery, especially for our retirees, or something has happened with the parents, and now they have to go and become a caretaker for the parent. We're not losing advocates due to just regular hiccups that life has. They are really staying with the child. They develop an incredible rapport with that child. So I would just say that we are really triumphing when it comes to retention. I don't think that we could get better than 80% retention, and that's marked at 1 year. So not a month, quarterly, semi-annually. We mark it at 1 year for our retention rate.
That's terrific. Are you seeking more advocates?
We do. We're constantly advertising and doing trainings. Our trainings have gotten a lot smaller. We're not getting the big trainings that we used to, so we're usually training 1 or 2 at a time. But, you know, that's what it takes, and we want to get them through. It's a long training process. With national causes trying to look at that to see if they can speed that up in any way. But there's just so much that advocates have to learn. I think that they can break it up into a self-paced and classroom type training. That I think will accelerate it.
I'm going to look at Judge Needham and not try to surprise him, but Sean, if you could just stay there for a second. I was going to just ask Judge Needham, who you folks appear before regularly, and his other colleagues, if Judge Needham had any comments at this time. We'll hear from him later on the circuit update, but if Judge Needham had any comments on your experience with the CASA program.
Yeah, I'll echo certainly what Sean has shared, and that's the value of our advocates. And this is not a criticism of the social worker or the department, but their caseloads are such that they can't devote the time and energy that the CASAs can. So when we get a report in a file, it tells me things I never knew for 28 years of not having CASA in St. Croix. So we're getting information that is useful, it is helpful, it is certainly important to decisions that we're making. So the reports are phenomenal, and the advocacy, they're looking out for the best interests of these kids and trying to get them home or trying to get them into a stable living environment. And as Sean said, the relationships that are built, I think you'll recall I promoted this at the church I belonged to, and we had 4 or 5 folks who ultimately became advocates, who one of their kids went home and they asked, can I still maintain a relationship? And I think the parents agreed. So she, albeit no longer formally assigned to that child, has maintained that relationship going forward. So yes, it's a valuable service, one that we have now become dependent on in terms of decision-making and information that we're learning that we didn't know before. So it's a valuable service.
Thank you, Judge. Are there any other questions?
If you could have all the advocates you wanted, how many would you want?
So there, in 2024, there were 117 children in out-of-home. So the ratio is about 1.5 to 1. So one advocate can support about 1.5. And that's, of course, because 50% of them are still working, so they don't have quite the time. I think revenue-wise, what the county can, not the county proper, but St. Croix could support is probably about 46 advocates, because that ratio is for our volunteer coordinators is 1 to 23. So one supervisor can supervise 23 advocates. I don't think that financially, there's not enough grants available to lift us beyond that at this point. So really we'll have to rely on some fundraising. And so I think it'll probably be an organization of 3 FTEs.
Supervisor Lee.
I just wanted to thank you. I think this is amazing, and it's to watch where we've come from, what we started with. It's fantastic. So I appreciate all the work that you and your team does.
Thank you so much.
If there's no further questions, thank you for being with us again, Sean, and we'll look forward to seeing you either at the end of next quarter or the first part of next year.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Do you want me to just close it?
Next item on our agenda is KIP budget amendments, dealing particularly with the communications towers.
Yes. We'll call Terry and Tim up here in just a second, but while he's making his way up. The formal resolution is that of a budget amendment. Normally those go to the administration committee, but we're asking for you to weigh in on it first, really to say whether we should or shouldn't. So the backstory on this is when we were doing our committee of the whole meeting a couple months ago, talking about KIP projects, the existing tower in Hammond that we have a lease on through 2030 came up. Supervisor Barkalow had asked where we were with being able to purchase that rather than building a new tower. And those negotiations had kind of just fallen off. So through Supervisor Barkalow's efforts and through County Board Chair Long, those negotiations restarted. We were able to come to a price with the current owners of $300,000. So that's what the budget amendment would be for, is to spend that $300,000 in 2025, close the deal to purchase that tower. But we want to make sure that before we do that, you have all of the information about the pros and cons of staying on the existing tower or building a new tower. And so that's what Terry's going to go over for you so that you can make an informed decision when you're asked to recommend this resolution. All right, Terry.
Good morning. So in regard to this, I'm going to explain the pros and cons as Administrator Wood had advised. So currently the tower is 199 feet. It's a lattice tower. For those of you that it's not a pole, so to speak. There are 10 radio channels that operate off this site. There are 6 antennas that we use on that tower itself. And from the information that I can find, that tower was constructed in the early 90s. The current tower to purchase, as Administrator Wood had indicated, is $300,000. There are additional costs anticipated that we would have to put in place if the county would purchase the tower back from that entity. There would have to be fencing for security purposes. There'd have to be additional bollards. The fencing would have to be put in place because before, when the county owned it, the gates were shut during the nighttime. And during the day, there was always staff on site. Currently, the gates are never closed since there's multiple companies operating out of that site. And there's vehicles that are operating from various companies, so we feel we have to put a few extra bollards around the shelter, the generator, and the tower itself. As well as the fencing would have to be put in place for security, because right now, children, adults, adventure seekers could walk on the property and climb the tower. There's some landscape maintenance that would have to occur. Some of the landscape rock on the one side is washing out, so there's some funds there that would be needed. There's some additional tower maintenance. We did an inspection as part of the process here, and there's a recommendation for a climbing wire for safety of the staff that climb the tower to replace that. That's showing some natural wear. So there's a grand total of additional estimated costs that would be needed if we were to purchase that tower. The pros, currently there's a tower shelter there. There's a generator already present. There's no need for any structural permits, licenses. We have all them there for that site. It's a known tower. The coverage from that tower is known what we have right now. Avoids having to move any radio equipment. So it'd be a nominal fee of moving that equipment instead of moving. And as I indicated, we had already done an inspection of the tower with no major critical errors or flaws in the tower itself. There's cons. The current life of the tower at that site is expected until in the 2040s. There's a height of 199 feet, so we're limited on coverage. There's an unknown future of if the current entity is going to continue to own that, any different landowners or any buildings adjacent to the tower are going to be changing. For those of you that don't know, the tower butts adjacent within feet of one of the buildings, the main building there. There's limited access to the site for maintenance. It's a very tight area because there's a driveway on 2 of the sides. And as I had indicated about the tower being so close to the building, it was not designed to collapse on itself. So if that tower should ever fail due to wind, weather, or fatigue, the county would have to consider dealing with that if the tower would collapse on that structure. It's an unknown for the footprint of the parcel that hasn't been decided yet. Like I had indicated, it's a very tight area for the fence to be installed. It might be very uptight to the generator, the shelter, and the tower structure itself. For a proposed tower site, the pros are we could do a taller tower designed for additional expansion. It provides a better, wider coverage of radio, specifically to the south and even to the north for the topography of the rolling terrain that's out there. There's more flexibility for additional antennas as the responders' needs grow. We would build that tower and a shelter for what is needed for the future and not be limited to the space that's currently at that Hammond site. We've been working with the existing partner, St. Croix Electric Cooperative, for a tower down on their property. They have some land that they currently have set aside, so there'd be a savings in cost of property. We currently have partnership with them. They're on various tower sites now for their equipment for monitoring their customers. We also have an agreement partnership with Dairyland Power, using their microwave to transport some radio down to Ellsworth when we communicate with Pierce County. The cons for the proposed Hammond Towers, the cost of the construction. There'd be cost for permits and license fees, which is indicated in the KIP for the future project. There'd be some cost for moving and repurposing certain radio equipment if we would have to go to this new site. And I included a snippet for radio coverage. The light blue color is good. The green color's the best. And any gray, if you will, the base color at the very bottom of the map, so to speak, is poor. On the left-hand side is the current tower, 210 feet to the top of the antenna, our tallest antenna there. You can see to the south of Hammond, there's some pockets of gray or brown, whatever you want to call it, and there's some light blue, and then there's some green. On the right-hand side for a 340-foot tower proposed, there's a lot more green and a lot more blue and very little brown down to the south of the Hammond area, down in that rolling terrain that's down there. Now, I will add that the River Falls North, Baldwin, Woodville, and Roberts, they all overlay, but they only have a reach of so far. But the Hammond at the 340 does provide a better coverage to the south. If you were to ask me, in my opinion, which direction, putting all the financials aside, I do think that the 340-foot tower for the future is a better decision, in my opinion, just for that part of it, all the enhancements that it's given us and the possibilities. Any questions?
Supervisor Adams and then Supervisor Leaf.
Thank you, Chair. This is a great presentation, really helps visualize what we need. I'm personally in favor of the new tower. I'd prefer not to, buy a used car, that we just do a little polish and 2 new tires on the front. Are there any items at the present site that we could transfer over to the new site, such as the generator? Would that be a savings, or would you want to start fresh with that too?
Currently, the only thing that is the county's property is inside the shelter. The racks, the radio equipment. Anything on the external side of the shelter, the generator, the tower, is their property.
Thank you.
I agree with Supervisor Adams. I think that we're just kicking a can down the road and it's going to be more expensive when we need to deal with it later. So I'm in favor. I agree with you, Terry, that we should consider the new tower.
Supervisor Ramberg.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and one of the things that popped into my head was I'm correlating this with those roundabouts on the highways, being a highway guy. And I remember all the roundabouts between Roberts and New Richmond years ago, I was against them. And I thought it would impede our traffic and whatnot. And after talking to the state, I found the wisdom in a roundabout is, number one, that it reduces crashes down to just maybe injuries, but no deaths. And that was key. But the point that they brought up that I found was a ooh-ah moment was the lifespan of a roundabout was going to fill the gap between now and the 4-lane that was going to come. Because I thought, why are you putting roundabouts there if you're going to put a 4-lane? They said, well, the funding isn't there, but the lifespan of a roundabout would be, when it's done, the 4-lane will most likely be funded, and it'll fill that gap. So I was trying to apply that same thought process to this, and I believe it was a 50-year, from 1991 for 50 years for the current tower. That would bring it out to 2041 or so, and our current lease is to 2030. So there's an 11-year difference. And I'm trying to think of what's the gap. The gap we're filling with the 300,000 is 11 years. Does that make sense? Is that right? 11 years, because if our current lease is 2030 and the existing used tower we're looking at is 2041, we're just to get a number on it, we have $300,000 for 11 years. And then that's just to bring that up to chew on, because it's good to know what kind of a time frame we're looking at and what that time frame would cost us, and of course the efforts. And so I see the value in getting something that will have more coverage and whatnot, but I don't know what location would the new tower be? Would that be out by their current water tower?
So in working with St. Croix Electric and their president, they have a plot that believe they would put us on the western edge of their property. It's west of their current offices and such, but they already have a plot designated that if we move forward, that they'd be willing to enter an agreement with us in the future.
Okay, so then my other thought process is that if we did the $300,000 and purchased the current communication tower, is that just a Band-Aid? And we're still going to continue, because in 2041, when it dies, or when its life expectancy is to die, are we then targeting a new tower? And I think that's a question we need to answer so are we gonna do both or one, is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, so if the county would purchase the current tower at the Hammond site, we would remain there. There'd be the cost initially up front. We'd have to enhance it for the security purposes. And then when the time would come around that 2040 timeline, there'd be some additional cost of trying to enhance the tower to make sure that it will withstand weather, ice, wind, making sure it can do that. There'd be numerous inspections between now and then for additional fees as well, but there would be a time where towers live their life and are no longer viable, that they run the risk of failing.
And one last thing is, our current insurance covers any tip over. Is that correct? Or it did when we owned it. Is that correct?
I'd have to look into that. I don't know that answer offhand.
I have just a couple questions, and did Supervisor Carlson have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. What is the projected cost of the new tower?
It's estimated around $865,000.
All in?
That's the tower, all the fees, permits, the shelter, the generator, all in.
And we have no further liabilities with regard to the current tower if we walk away in 2030?
If we walk away in 2030, we take our radio equipment that's inside the shelter, and the agreement states that we have to remove our antennas, dishes, and coax off the tower.
And would we normally maintain our lease with our utilization of the old tower until 2030 and authorize this tower for effectively 2031 or so, or is the anticipation we will build it now and it'll be up and running in a couple of years?
If the county would move forward with the proposed new tower, the plan is the late 2029 to have everything turned up live. That'd be a priority, getting that site turned up so we'd be out by December 31st, out and everything removed from that tower.
And this is more a question for Administrator Witt, and you may or may not know it exactly, but you mentioned Supervisor Barkalow earlier had encouraged us to continue negotiations. Has he expressed a view on the tower in Hammond?
Well, I think he was encouraging us to pursue that. Supervisor Barkalow was, yeah.
With the present arrangements?
Correct, yep.
Are there any other questions, observations? Terry, anything else you'd like to close with? Administrator Witt, would you have any further observations on this? I guess we're looking at a cost of $865,000 versus a cost of $300,000. And as it brought out by others, at least an 11-year life, if not longer, depending on what we did. How does that fit into discussions on the KIP and money's available, that sort of thing,
It's a policy decision.
right?
That means you guys get to decide that. So we presented you with two different options. We have a short-term solution for 300,000. We have a longer-term solution for 865. So it's your choice. So Terry's laid out all the pros and cons.
And the KIP budget itself is healthy at this point?
It is, yep. This project is planned to start in 2027, so that by the end of 2029, we can be off an old tower. So it's just a matter of knowing before 2027, are we going to go with the new tower, or do we cross that off the list and stay on the existing structure?
Okay. Supervisor Adams?
I'm not sure if we're at the stage yet, but I'll just go ahead and throw it out. I'd like to propose that our committee recommend to the full board that we go with the $865K amount and go with the new tower and make this last for another 50 years or however many we can do. Thank you.
Second.
We've had a motion and a second to effectively take the position of endorsing a new tower in the Hammond facility. And it's open for discussion.
And for discussion purposes, there was one point that I was thinking of as we were cussing and discussing or talking, is the hassle factor too of being right there next to other entities and tight like that in the village. There's consequences there that we're not quite aware of that we're eliminating if we continue with our plan. And in looking at the 11 years and comparing that to our lease as well, I'm in agreement as well to get something that we don't have to repair and fix to get up to code or to get up, to get working and to be stable if it tips over, and dealing with the insurance issues, being right in the village there too. So just wanted to throw that out there as a comment as well. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I do, Chair. So your motion is pertinent to the subject, but the actual question before you is the budget amendment of $300,000. So I guess just procedurally, which direction do you want to go? Do you want to modify this, send something to the full county board to continue to endorse the current KIP as we have it laid out that was approved just Tuesday night? Or do you want to kill this project at this point by just rejecting this resolution? And procedurally, it's just up to you. I just need to know where you want to go.
I guess I would suspect that we would just reject this then. That would be but usually you get it on the table by how do you do it parliamentary procedure wise? Because like somebody has to make the motion to bring it to the floor, the resolution, and then we just fail it.
Yeah, no, you can have a motion to not approve, a negative motion.
All right, then I'll do that.
So you do have a current motion on the floor that you'll have to,
We have to deal with that one.
yeah.
Well, we do, but what if we were, I'm just also just asking the group here, if we were to do what the administrator said, if we were to do that, and we were to reject the current resolution for 300,000, we could also have a positive resolution to endorse the new tower, correct?
Correct, yeah, and I can modify the resolution then based upon your motion. So, I mean, your existing motion, I mean,
So I'm just saying, if we were to proceed, and I kind of sense where the vote's going to go on that, and we can get out of the parliamentary situation unless there's, I'll ask unanimous consent to vitiate the earlier motion and move maybe Supervisor Adams would like to do this, but to reject the current motion and then proceed to a motion that we would adopt the proposal for the new tower.
That's exactly what I would say.
Okay.
understood.
I think, Chad, just forget the initial motion. And so this will be a vote to reject the proposed resolution for 300,000 extension and to adopt a motion to accept a new tower at a cost of approximately $865,000.
So moved.
Is there any question on that from anybody? So all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Nay. It's unanimous, 5-0. And we can work out any details of language on that with the permission of the committee, with the administrator and Janet, to make sure it's done exactly properly. I think we know where we wanted to go with it. And this will go to admin as well for their approval later in the month.
Yeah, well, I guess that was kind of my thought was, did you guys just kill this at committee and that's it? It's a done deal? Or did you want it to go to the full county board for a vote? I mean, the board's voted on building the new tower. In the KIP plan, they've done that. So, I mean, a lot of times things can get killed at committee. I mean, that happens all the time.
Yeah, I think we don't have to bring it anywhere. We killed it.
Yep.
I mean,
I think that's correct.
as long as it's in the KIP and we're moving ahead.
Yep, and
Which
that's
we've
normally
approved
how
that.
I'd interpret things. The committee will kill a subject unless you want it to go to the board, just so that the full board got to weigh in on it.
I think what Supervisor Leaf just said was the intent of Supervisor Adams' motion.
Okay, very good. Just clarifying. Thank you.
Now, again, we go to Mr. Witt on consideration of 2026 budget requests.
Okay, let's talk budgeting. All right, so first, just a little overall of this budget. This is the first committee that's getting to see it. But when all of the budget requests come in and I project out my revenues, there's always more requests for expenses than there are revenues that I have available. So this year we had about $654,000 worth of requests above what I project my revenues to be able to handle. So that's actually really good. This time last year, I was looking at 1.6 million over. So this year, only 654,000 over. So it's still over, so things still do need to be cut out of the budget. So not everybody gets everything they want, but it is an easier solution for me. So two factors that kind of go into that. One is wages and benefits were coming in lower, in some cases lower overall from last year than the prior year. Part of that is from our wage grid system, the way it was designed when it was built in 2015, and I think this is the first time we've actually seen it work this way, is that as people grow through the wage grid, they earn more and more and more, and then they retire, and then we hire new people at a lower wage rate. And so there's actually a salary savings built into that. Throughout the pandemic, there were so few applicants, we ended up hiring them higher into the wage grid. We're getting to the point now, we are getting more applicants, and department heads are getting better at starting them at the beginning of the wage grid compared to where the people came off when they retired. So there's actually a built-in savings through that turnover. The other thing then is on the health insurance. We've made a number of changes over the years to our health insurance plan. We actually saw a decrease utilization in our health insurance, the number of people taking our plan. So every person that was taking a family plan that decided to switch to their spouse's plan just saved the county $25,000. So we actually saw a $400,000 decrease in our health insurance because of some of those changes. So those built into part of why I'm only at $654,000 rather than 1.6 million. The other thing that I would attribute it to is the department heads, and as I reviewed the budgets of the department heads, I actually had to increase some of their expenses because they came in very, very conservative. They're either really afraid of me or they've just become more fiscally conservative through years of training with me. Yeah. So, I mean, but they've been very conservative. They've put together really thoughtful budget requests. And so I think that's attributed also to where we are at our starting point. So that's the background on where our budget requests are. All right. So let's dive into some of the budget requests. So again, when we look at the budgets, the first thing I look at is that general property tax line, because that's the fiscal impact. They've covered everything else in the budget. This is the fiscal impact. So when you look at circuit court, it's up by $20,000 in the amount of tax levy needed. The next thing I look at is the net wages and fringes. So that's up by about $100,000. So that's more even than what we looked at. Health insurance, just backing up a little bit. Last year was 192 and this year is 182. So we do have a 2.8% increase in health insurance premiums, but actually a decrease in the health insurance. That can be either less people taking the plan or family plans to single plans. It's a mix of the people involved in that department. When we look down at other things going on in here, the requested budget, we see a change in court commissioners. So we are looking at a change in the way we pay for the court commissioners. Our current court commissioner, Tim Heckman, is an employee, a salaried employee, gets a paycheck every 2 weeks, just like all the other county employees. And the family court commissioner is on a contract basis. That's where that line is. So we're looking at making a change at some point in 2026 to the structure of how that compensation is done. So that's why you see a $100,000 increase in the net wages and fringes, even though there's a decrease in health insurance, and that contract line is going away. So we've been discussing some different options along there, so the final budget may look a little bit different than that, but when we made the initial budget request, that's how it looks. And that's probably the major change that you're seeing in the circuit court budget. Any questions on anything we have going on there? All right. I'll keep moving then.
Actually,
Yeah.
although it's mixing things up a bit, and we've called on Judge Needham in another situation, could we also just ask Judge Needham while we're doing courts for Judge Needham's input to that budget and how that affects the commissioners from your perspective?
Sure, and Mr. Witt and I and my colleagues have been talking about this because Steve Dunlap, who's been our family court commissioner for going on 25 years, has indicated that he may be retiring this coming year. And I think, in fact, he's given me a for sure date, but last week he might be backing it even a little bit earlier than that was talked about. The benefit of having Mr. Dunlap for these last number of years is that he's quasi-retired. He does not maintain a practice. He doesn't maintain an office. His work is here at the government center. And so we've been the beneficiary of someone who's willing to do that job on a contract basis without benefits, without anything else. And his hours are generally flexible. But if I were to estimate, he's working anywhere from 30 plus hours a week to do this work. Our court commissioner, Mr. Heckman, is overwhelmed right now. His workload has increased exponentially. And so Mr. Witt and I have been talking about how can we balance that off. And I believe, and this was really Mr. Witt's suggestion, is to make the family court commissioner a county employee where we could offer benefits, attract qualified candidates, and shift some of the responsibilities that Mr. Heckman is doing over to the family court commissioner and try to balance off those workloads. So the judges are in support of this in terms of where this is heading. We don't think there's another Steve Dunlap out there who would be willing to take this on as part-time, contracted. There just isn't that pool of potential candidates. So to make it attractive, to make it competitive, and to get a qualified candidate, making it a county employee, we think is the only avenue that is viable. And family court commissioner is a required position in the county. It's not optional, so we have to have a family court commissioner. They are appointed by the judges. They serve at the judge's pleasure, and so it's not really an optional position. It's a mandatory statutory position.
Yeah. The discussion is just on, what is that FT? How are we going to pay them? So.
Okay. Thank you, Judge Needham, for that. Please continue,
Yeah.
Mr. Witt.
Judge Needham and I will get that worked out. All right, on to the clerk of courts. So we look at the clerk of courts. We're looking at an increase about $45,000 there. So we look down, where are some of those changes coming in from? I look at the net wages and fringes. They're only up by 12,000, so a little bit there. Legal services, so they've budgeted from 170 to 180. The prior 2 years, though, they finished at 191, 232. They were at 109 through the beginning of August. So that line and the next two also. I'm going to say the same thing on, so court-appointed counsel then. So 320,000, same as budgeted last year. The two prior years, though, were 356 and 386, and we were at 167 midway through the year. And then interpreter services, the top of the next page. So we increased the budget from 25 to 30. Two prior years were 31 and then 73 last year, and we're already at 32,000 through this year. So this is one of those areas where the clerk of court came in probably too conservatively. One of the plus sides, though, is in the state budget, we have an increase in court funding. They increased court funding statewide by $10 million. I've calculated our anticipated share of that is $90,900. So that is not reflected in the revenues. So when I balance this budget, I'm going to add that $90,900 in revenues, and I'm going to be increasing those three line items by $90,900. So the clerk of courts is going to keep all the extra money that they came in. I'm not going to give it to circuit court. I'm going to give it all to clerk of courts. But those three line items right there are just escalating so fast. If you look at our history, they're going to need to be higher, and this is the chance to do it with those additional revenues.
If I could jump in for just 1 second. I think, please correct me on the details of this, but last year we had quite a discussion about endorsing a resolution that would have adopted a Wisconsin Counties Association proposal relative to the court budgeting. And I don't recall the exact number.
70 million.
I was just going to say it was 60, 70 million. I think what the legislature ultimately did was, as Mr. Wood said, about 10 million. So we got something, but it fell far short of what we had advocated for and what we had hoped for.
Yeah, the $90,000 that we're going to get, that's great. It's going to patch some of the holes that are in the boat, but it's not a new boat. It's just patched. So we're going to patch those holes, though, and get the funding up on those line items where we've consistently been running over. So that's really the story of the clerk of courts. Anything additional, anything you want to add, Christy?
I guess what I will add is we did get the check, the money, and it was about 90,000. So just under 90,000 that was received, so.
All right, it'll be higher next year. All right, moving on then to the medical examiner. So the medical examiner, their general property taxes are actually down just a little bit. And part of that is their fees are up. So from 80,000 to 130,000, and that's thanks to you and the new medical examiner that implemented that new out-of-state processing fee that we have. So whenever we have to process one of those certificates, we're collecting that fee, and that's reflective of this change right here in the medical examiner's fees. So that was able to offset all of their increases and then some. When we look at their net wages and fringes, you can see that's up about $30,000. We implemented some increases in there, particularly around the on-call wages. So I think we have some proposals to change those. So there's additional money allocated for that. If you look at the other fees then, they're relatively close to where they were last year. So any questions on the medical examiner? All righty. Move on to Justice Support Services. So if you look at last year, 847,000, 719,000 this year, there's a drop of over $100,000. So this one's interesting. So net wages and fringes went from 877 to 729. We didn't actually get rid of any employees. What I'd say, my budgeting is so good that only I was able to find my own error. So there was an error last year. I had an extra employee budgeted in Justice Support Services. I think there was a request, and then we didn't approve that, and it never got removed out of there. So that's a correction to last year. So that's why you're going to see that drop. There actually isn't any change in actual practice or application or personnel. It's just a budgeting mistake from last year that we're now correcting. If we look at our total operating, it went from 182 to 206. So if you're looking through, you're looking at some of these, there's a shifting around to some of these things, but really other professional services, you're seeing a $25,000 increase there, 5,000 extra in staff development. So just a little bit of shifting around of where some of these costs are expensed. You have any specific questions on any of those? Phil would be happy to answer.
I had just one general question. And again, Mr. Golly can answer, or Ken, you can. Last fall, we had an employee that was leaving, had to leave as a result of ARPA funding disappearing. And at that time, I know one of the judges had particularly made a plea for the extension of that person. And ultimately, that was rejected. That might have been the confusion with the employee.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, that the employee herself actually moved to Health and Human Services to perform another vital function. But I was going to ask Mr. Golly if that function that the employee was performing for you, has that been filled adequately, or are you still working on it, or do you need somebody to fill it?
Great question, Chair. Thank you. We've been backfilling it for the last 8 or so months, but we actually, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a paid intern that will be starting through Federal Work Study, UW River Falls, a partnership. So that's our plan for at least the next year, is to partner with UW River Falls on that.
And that's a satisfactory resolution from your perspective?
I think for the next year, it will be, and then maybe revisit the quality of work that we get out of that. That intern is going to be split between ourselves and the DA's office, so we'll each have the person for 5 or 10 hours a week for the next 9 months. So going into next summer, I feel comfortable with that plan. If we get the right person, which I'm hopeful we will, but I could probably give you a better answer next year on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, we'll move on then from Justice Support Services. District Attorney's Office. So if we look at their general property tax, the first line from $1,250 to $1,281, so there's a $31,000 increase. If we look at their net wages and fringes, 1.4 million to 1.5 million. So there's an additional position requested in there. So along their diversion program line, they've requested additional case management specialist to work on diversion, so they're able to handle the caseload of the diversion cases they have. So that additional position request is one of the things that I'm considering in the budget. If you look at their operating expenses, they went from 75 to 98. The big thing is $20,000 for subscriptions. So this subscription is a new software that's able to take, basically, if I get this right, Kathy, it's able to take the videos from the police departments and basically transcribe them. So it's able to dictate that, and you're able to read the notes as it goes through that video, which saves a lot of staff time. So instead of asking for additional legal assistance this year, they're using some software to be able to enhance some of the services they need in that regard. Any questions on the district attorney's budget? All right. Moving on to child support then. From 151,000 to 128. Those are negative amounts because they have more revenue coming in than they have expenses, because they charge off some of corporation counsel's time, so they get the extra revenue. It's down just a little bit. If you look at net wages and fringes, 866 to 857, so it was down a little bit. And again, health insurance, there's dropped from 152 to 140,000. So again, that drop is, it's usually a mix of the people that are involved in the health insurance plan, the selections that they make. If you look at their other operating expenses, they're about $5,000 higher than the prior year, 119 to 124,000. Any questions on child support? Moving along then, law enforcement. So just under 10.7 million to 10,988,000. So you see a few $100,000 increase there, fairly typical in law enforcement. It's a very large department. If we look at the net wages and salaries, 9.3 million to just under 9.5 million. This is one where, if we look at the health insurance, last year we were at 1.3 million budgeted for health insurance, add a 2.8% increase, and they come down to 1.2 million. So again, it's a different mixture of the people that have selected health insurance in that plan. If we look at their operating expenses then, 1.7 million to 1.8 million, so they're up about $95,000. Some of that was in rents and leases. This is their vehicles. So we've added some additional investigators. You're seeing those additional squad cars then being leased for that. So we purchase road vehicles for deputies that are patrol deputies. We purchase those, we rotate those on a 3-year basis. For command staff and investigators who are not typically hot pursuit vehicles, we're able to lease those through Enterprise. We rotate those on a 3-year basis right now also. But that's where you see rents and leases is one set of squads, and then the road squads are in the KIP plan. Other increases that we see, other professional services. This is court security, the front door security, amongst other things in there. We also see software and subscriptions increasing. That's the different software package. You're going to see this in emergency communications and the jail and all of them. That's that same software package that they use throughout law enforcement. Continually has these increases in the software. So gave us a great deal to start, but it just keeps ramping up. Any questions about anything else that you saw within that budget?
Supervisor Adams.
Thank you. On the cars that we purchase, how do we dispose of those at the end of the 3 years?
Yep. We send those to an auction place. Yep. And they're auctioned off.
And then are we going to have the monies to help the jail staff in terms of staffing levels if we have any vacancies?
Yeah, that's the next budget is the jail itself. So this is sheriff, this will be the whole enforcement side. So jail will be next, and we can talk about that. Yeah, I don't have any other things on this one then. No other questions. We'll move on.
Kenny, could you just repeat? I think I was just looking at it, but I missed it. What was the net increase then for that portion of the sheriff's budget?
For operating or for the property tax levy?
Well, why don't we say both?
Yeah. Yep, so it's a $289,000 increase for the law enforcement part of the sheriff's budget. About 95 of it was operating, and the rest of it would be wages and fringes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, moving on to corrections then. So their budget, $5,097,000 drops to $5,065,000. So their fees were down a little bit also. There was a change in how what fees can be billed through the jail. So that's reflective of a change, decrease. So why the decrease then? We look at the net wages and fringes. So we went from 4.2 million to $4,158,000. So if we look at health insurance, so $636,000 to $534,000. So part of that is the other thing that I do, because I budget conservatively, I never want to be over budget, I always want to be under budget. So anytime we have a vacancy, I assume that they're going to have a family plan. So every time there's a vacancy, when I put the budget together, when I start in May, I sort of lock in all the employees. And every vacant position on there is a family plan for me. In reality, though, they hire a lot of young people that aren't married yet and end up taking a single plan. So last year in May, we had a lot more vacancies in the jail than we had this year in May. So I was able to plug in actual selections. So you're seeing over $100,000 decrease there. because of that conservative budgeting technique where people were budgeted last time at a $25,000 family plan and they took an actual $9,000 single plan. So that's part of the savings there. And then just again, natural selection of who takes what insurance plans. If we look at their operating then, if we jump down to look at the total of that, $1,150,000 compared to $1,180,000. So a small increase there, and that's going to be back to jail meal contract. That was up by about $12,000. Other professional services was up a little bit. And their software and subscriptions is actually down just a little. Any other questions, though, on anything within that jail? So this is not asking for any new additional positions at this point. We had added 2 positions recently, so we added those in 24 or 25? Yeah. So those 2 jail positions were added in last year. With the jail expansion project starting in 2027, so really that project's probably going to take a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years to build. That staffing study does say that we'll need 2 additional jailers at that point. But I think we can wait until 28, 29 before we add those additional jailers at that point. There weren't any requests this year for additional jail staff.
Thank you.
Although they're getting a lot of good hires right now, I guess.
Before we go to emergency management, I'm going to just take advantage of the fact we're talking about the jail and the budget, but I'm going to just use the opportunity to also mention we did do the jail inspection on August 14th, and we don't have a checklist necessarily that we go through, but we do look at a lot of things. We had a number of the senior staff joined us for that walkthrough. We had spent about an hour and a half doing that, and about an hour afterwards, one sampling the food, chatting with the jail captains and the chief deputy and the sheriff. And I think overall we were quite impressed with the way the jail was running. Are there any other comments about that? So we appreciate that, Sheriff. Thank you.
All right. Emergency management. So general property tax is 130 to 128, so very flat on that. If you look at net wages and fringes, 188 to 193, so relatively close. And then the operating, obviously, is going to be just the inverse, 29,000 to 24,000. So very little change going on within this budget. Any questions on it? That's the easy one. Emergency communications. So 2.6 million to 2.7 million. So there's about $1 million increase here. If we look at net wages and fringes, 2,036,000 to 2.1 million. So there's some increase there. So if we look through and sort of look to see where it is, you know, some of it's in the total wages. We allocate additional money into overtime for emergency communications. If you look at our history, we're budgeted at 150,000, but we've consistently been in the low 200,000s. So there's a pretty good chunk increase there in overtime. If you look at the total operating expenses, 611,000 to 648. Most of that is in that software subscriptions. There's a $25,000 increase there. And then a $10,000 increase in miscellaneous repairs, which I think is related to the towers a lot. But any questions on what's going on within emergency communications?
Just a quick clarification. I think you misstated right at the beginning, unless I read this all wrong. You indicated they had $1 million increase. I think you meant to say $100,000 increase.
Correct, yes.
And just in case people are listening, they're not in shock that we increased it by $1 million. Supervisor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering on the emergency communication vehicle, what line item is that in here?
Yeah, so the vehicle is purchased through the KIP. I think there is an update 5 years out in the KIP for that command vehicle. Otherwise, it's going to be, the gas and stuff for it would be in vehicle operating supplies. They take it out so seldom, they don't even budget anything there for it. But it's still running off its first tank of gas, I guess. But yeah, it really, any operating supplies for it would come out of this budget, but they're pretty minimal. Yep. The updates to the vehicle would come through the KIP. Oh, you buy the gas there? Okay. All right. Sheriff buys the gas for Terry. All right. Any other questions on emergency communications? Then I am done. That is it for the requested budgets. So that's the early preview of it. That's for the requested. There are some cuts that have to happen to these budgets. They will not turn out this way because I do have to cut $654,000. It's got to come from somewhere. But those are the highlights, and those are the areas that I look at when I'm balancing. So if there's anything that you strongly favor or strongly oppose, now is the time to tell me, because I can build that in then to the recommended budget that you'll review in October. You could still change it there. You could still change it in November. But the earlier you tell me, the easier it is for me to get to a balanced budget. So things like the extra diversion in the DA's office, the conversion to from contract to employee status for the family court commissioner, anything that you wanted to weigh in on, I'd appreciate the feedback.
Supervisor Lee?
I think that is I agree with those shifts, for sure.
Any other comments for the administrator? Just one last question. The overall percentage of our expenses in the public safety area relative to our budget and how it relates maybe to last year?
Yeah. All of public safety, I don't know that percentage offhand. It was...
Typically, it's about 17%, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the number that was on the tip of my tongue, is 17%. So I haven't run the analysis to see where it is relative to where it was last year. It's probably within a percentage of there, because the whole budget's not shifting by very much. I know in the Green Book, if you look at public safety, though, we're going to be in the lower half of expenditures compared to our peers.
Well, thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation, and we'll look forward to seeing you again doing it in October or at the board in September. Well, I guess we've already met in September, so the COTW in October. Yeah, I can't forget that one. With that, it's Judge Needham. Thank you, Judge, for being with us today.
And I would simply, as an aside, I think you're aware that the court's budget and the state budget is about 0.8% of the total state budget supports the courts. We are good stewards here in St. Croix County as well, and our fraction of the budget, I hope, is recognized as similar in terms of that type of funding. This has been a month of transitions. We said goodbye to Judge Vlack after his 24 years of service, and welcomed a new judge, Judge Smithstead, as of August 1st. He was sworn in. I can't thank Christy and her staff and our judicial assistants for all the work they've done with that transition. Because Judge Smithstead was an assistant district attorney, basically he started on August 1st with 0 cases in terms of his criminal caseload. So the 400 cases that Judge Vlack had on his docket as of July 31st, those are all transferred to the 3 other judges. So each of us picked up about 130 additional criminal cases, which included significant work by the clerk's office, by the director's office, by our judicial assistants in getting out all those notices and reassigning and trying to find time on our calendars to basically absorb that additional work. We're now in the process of trying to build a calendar, build a caseload for Judge Smithstead. So in 2026, when his conflicts hopefully will be less. He is going to be picking up significantly more intake weeks than the rest of us to try to start build that criminal caseload. So again, thanks to Christie, our JAs, and others for going through all of that work and that processing. We're looking forward to the construction being done. The noise has been manageable, but again, our commissioners, it seems like weekly are moving from 2 sets of courtroom to another 2 set back and forth because of the construction. IT has been, again, phenomenal in making sure that all those transitions are covered, but it does create a lot more work for our staff when we're constantly moving between the 4 courtrooms upstairs, and we're looking forward to getting our permanent chambers as well as courtrooms after the October move-in date. Finally, I can't, again, express enough to Mr. Witt and the board for bringing DOC on site. You can't imagine how many people got lost between this building and Department of Corrections when they were out in the on O'Neill Road, and so now it's a one-stop shop. We put them on probation. They're able to walk down the hall and get signed up. So that, again, from our standpoint, has really, really enhanced our efficiencies as well as just that overall coordination with the Department of Corrections. That's my report.
Any questions for Judge Needham? Judge, I would echo what you said about the Department of Corrections coming into the building. That's been a big help. It just has been. Thank you again to Mr. Witt for his foresight and the way he handled all of that. It was really terrific. A lot of work behind the scenes there. Judge, I'm just a little curious, although this is totally internal to your business and not anything that we would have any role in the policy, but Judge Schmisted had to recuse himself from every case that was a criminal case while he was in the DA's office?
Correct. Because he was the deputy district attorney, our ethics rules basically say any case that was there or even an investigation as of July 31st, he's automatically recused from because he's presumed to have knowledge of everything that was going on in the office. So even with cases that are now being filed after August 1, we have to do a conflict check to see, was it an investigation as of July 31? Also, because he was an assistant DA, he was a public defender before that, he has also the automatic recusal roles that if he represented someone, if he prosecuted them, he has to recuse at least for a period of time until those conflicts start to resolve. So, yes.
Thank you. That completes the business side of our agenda. Is there no further questions for Judge Needham? Requests for future agenda items. I'm just going to, well, first of all, I'll ask, are there any requests for future agenda items? If there aren't, one of the things that we've done in the past is, annually, we go and do a jail inspection. About every other year, we've tried to go to the medical examiner's office up in New Richmond and physically go through that facility. So our medical examiner is with us today, Tina Forrest. And Tina, I was just going to ask, our next meeting is scheduled for October 2nd. Is that could you comment if that's a good date to perhaps visit you and conduct our public protection meeting at your facility?
Thank you. Absolutely.
We typically meet at 8 o'clock. That's also a good time, and we can work out details as necessary. But typically, we're about an hour, hour and a half, and I think that's more or less what we've taken in the past. We have a lot of questions usually. It's just a walkthrough, and there's no inspection, but it gives us an opportunity to really see all the incredible work that your office has to do, and we appreciate it if you can host us for that. That'd be great. If something comes up in the meantime, I'll work with Administrator Witt if we have to meet to do any other business, but we'll plan on that if there's no objection from the committee. Thank you. We might also want to consider doing that periodically with some of the other major offices that that report periodically to us, not to interfere with their time and certainly not to get involved in their internal policy decisions, but to, for example, visiting the district attorney. They're now about half a wing of the building. and perhaps meeting with District Attorney Anderson and his staff to go over and just in detail so you can meet them and hear from them directly as to some of their needs and whatever, and we can work that out at a time that's most convenient for the members of this committee and for those offices, if that's appropriate. I'll chat with a couple of those folks. I don't know, Elisa has been very generous in doing the same thing with us in the past, and so we'll work through that and make a report back to everybody in October. Any other announcements? Seeing none, again, the date of our next meeting is October 2nd, and we're adjourned. Thank you.